Hey YouTube, it's Justin, aka Demonic Sweaters, and I just wanted to post this video of something that I recently discovered, and I don't know how I just now recently discovered this because it apparently has been around since 2015, but it's not part of at least the Ubuntu repositories or anything like that, and it doesn't look like it's part of Ubuntu Studio or AV Linux or any of those. Well, actually, I haven't checked AV Linux in a long time, so maybe it is part of that. But what I'm talking about here is something called LSP, which stands for Linux Studio Plugins. And these things are really, really cool. And I'm just like looking at the web page here. If you want to get them, you can just go to lsp-plug.in and you can download these. You can just go to download and just download a compressed file, and then just extract them to your plugins folder. And that's exactly what I did. I'm using what I have here is Reaper. And if we just look at my options in Reaper, go to Preferences, and then down here under VST, because I installed the Linux VST versions. And if we look here, we can see my path was just home/justinw/.vst, and I just extracted all the plugins right into there. And they are some pretty, I haven't played around with all of them, but I have to say these things look very, very promising. The one thing, and the whole reason why I found these, the one that I have played around with a little bit, is a pretty nifty little drum replacer plugin. Now, if you're not familiar with what a drum replacer plugin is, it's basically a plugin that you can use on like a kick drum or a snare drum. Most commonly, it'd be used on the kick drum. To trigger a sampled sound. So if you want to use like a sampled bass drum sound or something like that, and that's kind of what I was looking to do. And I have a plugin for Windows called Drumagog that does a very, very good job at this. But in Linux, I wasn't aware of anything that could do it, so I did some searching around. Then I found these guys, these LSP plugins, and they have a plugin called, let me find it in here, I think it's just Trigger. Yeah, it's just called Vst Trigger, and there's a mono and a stereo version. So let me load up the mono version here, and this is actually pretty neat. We can go into Instrument, and then we can click and load our samples here, and I have some Simmons kick drum samples here, and I just put one in sample slot 1, and it has, if you look here, there's a whole row of 7 different dynamic settings. So you could, if you wanted to, if you had like a bunch of different samples for different dynamics, you can load those in on each of those. But just for this example, I'm just going to use one here in the first sample slot. Now, the one thing I did notice, let me play this back a little bit. It's solo, the kick drum. Okay, so you can hear that it is triggering pretty good right there with most of the default settings. I need to cut off the head a little bit because it is a little bit behind, so I can just do that like that. Now if I bypass it, you can hear the difference. So there's my kick drum without the trigger, and that's it with it. Now, the one thing, though, and I didn't really want this to be all about this particular plugin, but the one thing that I found a little bit strange about this is the settings seem to be a little bit weird. Basically, what I mean by that is like messing around with these dynamics section. It seems like this could have been made a little bit simpler, more of a threshold, almost like a gate, you know, and kind of how Drumagog is. But I don't know, it does seem to work, and you can mess with these settings, but it's really easy to mess with them and just make it not work, is what I've noticed. And it does seem to have some issues if I go, like here at the end, I do some double bass drum stuff, and here at the very end, I do some fast stuff. And it seems to have trouble triggering a lot of fast bass drums at the same time, I've noticed. But I don't know, that could be resolved just from getting better at mastering the settings, which I haven't spent a lot of time on yet. So, but my first observations, I did mess with it quite a bit this morning, and couldn't really get that sorted out. But you know, it's promising. And as something like this, you know, because a lot of people, you know, this is a very useful type of plugin. It's nice to be able to add a triggered sound onto your bass drum if you need to. It's a good way to augment it and give it a little more attack. That's usually what I do when I do that, is like I'll blend it in with the real signal as well. I don't do it too often, but I have occasionally. And there's something new that I want to work on where I wanted to do that a lot more. So I was looking for something to do this without having to actually put a real trigger on my bass drum, which I might end up doing anyways because it might be more reliable. But for the time being, at least I have this to play with. Now, in addition to that, there's a lot of other plugins. Like if we go back here to their website and we look on the manual section, you can see there are a lot of plugins here. We have stereo limiter, mono limiter, dynamic processor, expander, gates, graphic equalizers, impulse response, sampler, compressor, latency meter. Oh, that could be useful. Multiband compressor, multiband compressor stereo, multiband or oscillator mono, parametric equalizers. That's very nice. Phase detector. That is also a nice feature. Multi-sampler, sidechain multiband compressor, sidechain dynamic processor, mid-side sidechain. I mean, there's a lot of stuff here. Spectrum analyzers, triggers. You know, these are all the different trigger things in here. There's one for MIDI as well, which I haven't played around with that yet. But yeah, here's a bunch of links to some video tutorials. So this is really, really cool. I love the UIs on these. They look really nice. Very like, you know, pleasing designs, and they go really well with Reaper. And I'm using the native. Let me get out of that. Using the native client of Reaper in Linux. I'm using Ubuntu 1904 right now, and they all seem to load in there just fine. So this is really, really cool. It's a great complement to Reaper, and I'm sure Ardor and any other DAW that uses VSTs. Well, actually, they also have on the website, it says there's LV2s and LADSPAs too, though when I did the download, it just downloaded the VSTs, but maybe I just didn't look hard enough. But anyway, I just wanted to give a shout out to these guys and say thanks. You know, this is some awesome stuff, and I wanted to share it with the Linux audio community here. And if you guys have used this yourself, let me know what you think of it. And you know, if you haven't, you should definitely check them out. So anyway, thanks for watching, everybody, and have a great day. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do. You can always go to my Patreon account if you want to support videos like this. It's just patreon.com/demonicsweaters. And I'll see you guys really soon, okay?